What's going on, guys, and welcome back to this episode of Split Screen D&D, the place where we're attacking all things Dungeons and Dragons from both sides of the screen. As always, my name's Tom Quinn, resident Dungeon Master here at Modern
Josh. I'm Josh Wydens, resident player character here at Modern Myth. Oh, I'm glad you got me laughing early on in this episode because this might turn into a ranter.
This one, we'll see. I'm surprised. I thought we were going to be on different sides of this one, but
I hate to say it. I think the more I thought about it, the less I think I might be on your side.
You are reminding me of a guy who used to yell at children that would cut the corner of his lawn on their way to school every morning.
Oh, don't worry. I'm a public educator, so I scream at children plenty. But
okay.
no worries. But
well practiced.
As much as I wish that this is something, man, I can't believe we haven't touched this subject before. But this wasn't our ideas. This was brought to us by the legend, nay, the
myth.
Sure. Hey, a modern myth.
He got what I did there.
Modern myth. Yeah.
Yes.
But
the man
good old
himself.
Scott Burns, who I think is pretty much, man, he's been with us since pretty much the beginning and commenting like a boss. I love that, man.
Yeah. Cheers to Scott Burns. He's one of the OG subs, one of the OG guys down there in the comments.
But he was like, hey, guys, when are you going to talk about healing?
Yeah. And it was like a 10 gauge.
That's a monster gauge.
I know. It was like a 10 gauge.
Just watermelon.
It just
I'm not going to go graphic here because monetization. We're going to be monetized soon.
I was defined soon. No, I mean, yeah, huge.
Yes.
Scott Burns, and I could not believe that we hadn't touched
talk
on
about
it.
healing.
And both of us seem pretty animated on the topic. That's why I can't believe it.
Yeah, well, and researching this and thinking about this, I think I've changed a little bit just in the week that I've done this. So, but before we begin that, hey, do you have any words for the people out there?
I do. You guys are killing it. We have crossed the that seemingly only months ago, we'll call it 5-6 months ago, seemingly unattainable 500 subscriber mark. We couldn't have done that without you guys. So if you've got those friends, you've got those family members, you got those players that you don't really consider either, but they're at your table anyways.
We know what we are.
Yeah, I know. Feed it on out to them. Keep those shares coming. Keep those likes going. And keep repping out those subscribes. If you want to help support the channel directly, you can do so on patreon.com/modmyth. And as we are getting to the very, very end of season 1, we've got some big announcements coming down the pipeline.
Don't give it away, man.
I know.
Every
That's
time.
all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Good.
Some exciting stuff on the Patreon side. Some exciting ways of us giving back and saying thank you to all you people out there who are along for the ride. So
yes, sir.
But take us into healing.
Because
well, can I frame something real quick? Because
no, just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. You're standing on a grassy hill.
Ooh.
No,
a knoll.
You are standing in your own skin, in your own shoes.
Right
let's
now.
say a month ago, thinking about healing in 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
Can you start by just outlining what? Because you said it's changed, and I actually, again, a lot of times we really try not to have these conversations before we have the conversations. So I don't know where you've pivoted from, where you've pivoted to, but so we can have a sense of where you started in your thought process on healing. Can you outline that for me?
Yeah, healing. Yeah, absolutely. Healing's great. Well, in 5e, because our job is to win, right? Is to survive battles. That's winning for players. We need every advantage we can get. So the ability to that.
Damn right you do.
Yep. The ability that pretty much everyone in my party has access to some sort of healing is a boon because we don't have to really worry about it. If someone falls, worst comes to worst. A person who doesn't have magic, which come on, it's 5e, but the one person who doesn't have magic, they got some healing potions. We're set. Worst comes to worst,
they've got a wand that they've loaded with healing at this
right.
point, so.
Well, if you're talking about our specific,
oh yeah, I'm
campaign,
sorry. I thought you were
no, I was
being
being
specific, but general. Yeah,
general. So just like that is a good thing because that allows us. Because again, min-maxer mindset, which man, I might be coming off.
Are you climbing off the min-maxer pedestal
when it comes to my
onto your porch to scream at children?
Well, I'll always scream at children, but the idea that
did it from a pedestal before.
I'll still yell at children, but the I still want my character to always be powerful, and I want my character to be optimized because that's what I enjoy about the game. But when does it become a detriment to the game? And that's where I think that 5e has crossed that line egregiously.
Egregiously, that is a
egregiously
powerful word.
And God, because again, like if you were to talk to me a month ago, I've been encouraging every single player at our table, and I have.
Well, and I
get healing.
I would also say, why wouldn't you? I
Yeah.
mean, if it's there, why wouldn't you? If you can, why wouldn't you?
And that's where it gets hard
you know?
because the system that we play encourages it.
Yeah, I think so. A good deal of what we're going to be talking about in this episode are the systemic prescriptions and implications of healing in 5th edition. And I maybe can be so bold as Steve and say some recommendations in how that might be.
I would like to
alleviated or
try.
improved.
We could try. The problem is I think, as many people have pointed out, is 5e is so just the way it's made. I don't know how some serious homebrew has to happen.
I'm going to pitch something to you, and we'll see what you think.
Okay. But so let's first want to address the problems, and then we'll address some solutions.
Yep.
All right. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Well, I mean, so I think you kind of laid out a little bit of your journey to get to the table here today. I'm good for either. Wherever you want to go. I mean, you're seeming like you're fused.
I'm a little lit. I'm not gonna lie, because it's been.
I think you might be more impassioned. I thought I was gonna come in here, brimstone and fire, and you were gonna have to be calming me down. But I think it might be the other way around.
Well, I could tell you why. I'll tell you why, and then I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm really curious to what changed your mind.
Because I love being support in any other genre. If I play online games, I like being the healer. I never played too much MMORPGs, but usually I was either tank or healer. But any time that I could be a healer and helping my team, that was what I liked being. So when you become a healer in most games, you recognize what you're doing. You're keeping your party alive, but you're sacrificing. You're not doing the damage as much.
Right.
But that allows everyone else to do the damage.
Yep.
And if you're a halfway decent healer, your team will very quickly realize we'd be so fucked.
Right.
Excuse my language. Without that healer,
even if they seldom recognize it to your face, and in some cases even talk shit to you.
Yeah, that's If healers who play healers in games, you know exactly what he's talking about.
It's
so brutal. It's like, come on, you suck at the game. I'm sorry, I can't help you suck less.
Here's the deal: the only position at the table that is more thankless than the healer is the DM themselves.
Well, it's because you suck and life.
That's true. I mean, that plays into it, but no. But I completely.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Yes,
that's my back history, and I'm starting to think about being a healer, being like a cleric, and here's what
or a paladin. I don't get me wrong. Paladin's not exactly like the full blown healer that a cleric is, but. If what I'm hearing you say, I mean, and this echoes my feelings strongly, and this transcends healing. I want my strengths and weaknesses to be well known and well felt at the table.
Yes.
And when you as a paladin can do this beautiful divine magic with your hands, that doesn't feel at all important if everyone else can do some form of it.
Yep, 100%. And I'm going to take a little bit of a pivot because my first point is so I've been talking. It feels like most of mechanical what I'm getting at, but I'm going to take a big hard pivot and say it's destroying the narrative. Okay, so
by all means, hit me with that.
So 5e has built itself out to be a storytelling genre. This is a avenue to create beautiful stories, right? Well, without any homebrewing, just purely by how it works. And we've talked about this so many times. Healing in 5e is pretty much the yo-yo effect. When
I was wondering when we were going to get to.
I'm gonna get right after it. So But
And
I want to talk about why it's so bad.
Okay. Well, I think what you're saying has both mechanical and narrative
So I'm
implications.
going to go from the narrative first.
Yep.
And that, if you don't know what the yo-yo effect is when a fellow character falls, that's what you want. You don't heal a character until they fall. Once they fall, you give them just enough HP so they can bounce back up, and you keep them there. And so they fall and come back, and that's the yo-yo effect.
Yeah.
And it is mechanically a great idea.
Yeah, it is mechanically encouraged. I mean, is it worth going into a brief breakdown of why that makes so much sense?
Let's just do it because it'll make my point more clear. Yeah.
Well, let's say your ally. Again, many people watching this probably fully recognize this, but for those of you who don't, it really actually is kind of important because it really illustrates how broken the way these rules interact with each other. My character, let's say you and I are in a party. My character is down to 1 hit point. My intestines are hanging out of my body. I'm shoving them back in there.
Yep.
My healer looks over at me, my paladin.
Not going to help you right now. No, not yet. Not time. Not time
because
yet.
Whether I take 1 point of damage or 1,000 points of damage. Well, okay. Maybe
okay,
not.
so let's be clear.
Let's go.
50%.
Yeah. If I take 1 point of damage or 15 points of damage, let's say. We'll assume that we're level 8, level 10, whatever, where I'm not being obliterated, exploding outright.
Right.
I'm going to fall to the ground, and your healing will then, whatever amount you give me, will bring me back up from my baseline 0. And that in and of itself, let's say, for instance, you had healed me, lay on hands for 5 or 10 or whatever.
Sure.
That 15 hit points still kills me with 11. That 15 damage still kills me with 10. So I'm dead either way, and you've just used two.
I'll use like 2 hit points. Yeah, for sure.
Whereas if you let me drop and then you heal me, I'm back in action, which is already a ludicrous notion. I'm back and, raw. There's
there's no consequence to falling down in the base rules.
Yeah. And so anyways, that's the yo-yo effect. And as a DM. Nothing feels worse than watching a player not give a shit about another player falling.
Well, we're encouraged not to.
No, I get. I and that's the thing. It's like I have nothing to point at and go like, guys, really?
Yeah.
Because you go, really? Like,
I'm
it makes
sorry.
Absolute sense to do it.
You'd be an idiot not to. Yeah. But since we've built a narrative game, because when we're making these decisions, is it narrative or is it mechanical? I'm making a mechanical decision. Right. And when they're trying to build a narrative game, sorry, I'm getting really passionate right now. When they're trying to build a narrative game and I'm watching my comrades, my friends who we have fought through blood and bone and guts and, no, not helping you, bud. Sorry. Yeah, you're holding on to your intestines. Don't give a fuck about you. Sorry about the language. Don't give a frick about you.
This guy.
I know, right? I'm sorry. I'm really passionate right now. Because, I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense mechanically.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like any story, any amazing movie, any moment that you can recall when a character is and no one is, even in Lord of the Rings where I'm sorry, I reference them all the time, but it is like the OG of Dungeons and Dragons when the party is fighting in the mines of Moria and Frodo is fighting the cave troll and he gets stabbed, right? There's no healer in that group, is there? But do you see what every single part, like everyone responds and they're like, they drop everything to try and help Frodo in that moment. But in 5e, we're encouraged, no, we don't help that person who just fell. We don't help the person who's in mortal danger. We're going to focus on the thing that we know that we mechanically need to do.
Right.
Screw the story.
Well, so I've got 2 things.
Sorry.
One, I completely agree that your system, your rules should reinforce what you want at the table. I think the first question that comes to mind, I'll be curious to hear what you say about this, is why not ignore the mechanical? Why not just ignore that impulse? And like I said, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Because I think there are so many better solutions that actually do reinforce the style of play you would want to see. But the idea fundamentally is it's a role-playing game. So would your character allow that rubber banding or that yo-yoing to transpire? I mean that's the first question. Like I said, I can kind of pseudo answer it as I'm throwing it out there is I don't care myself because I want the system to inform the behaviors at the table. And this is healing is one of the most egregious ways in which it dismantles exactly what you would want to do. And in this example, and there will be other implications for healing as well. So no, I mean I completely agree with the boots on the ground way in which healing's interacting. I would stack on top of that the notion. Well, yeah, I would stack on top of that the notion that there are actually two things that are working against the healer in the group.
Okay.
One is the just overwhelming abundance of healing amidst the party. I mean, it's not difficult at all for party members to reach into that bag and find some healing solution within their own character.
I want to talk about that, but yes, I agree.
So that's one. Two, and this is another systemic thing, is long resting. Long resting makes you worthless
as a healer.
So long as the long resting can occur. Now there are many things that I think a DM can do.
DM can do a lot to negate that,
but fundamentally, the idea of full heal, just totally ready to go, is actually a relatively new idea off of a long rest. This is something that, and
what did 3.5 do? Do you remember? I know. I'm sorry. I'm putting you on the spot here.
I believe 3.5, I want to say, was your Constitution modifier times your... no, I might be thinking of Pathfinder. I mix the two up a lot. But effectively, Constitution modifier times your level.
Okay.
Hit points.
And that's all you get from a long rest. And do you get spell slots back and all that good stuff?
Yeah, you have rejuvenation on rest for other things.
Sorry.
Now, again, drop in the comments. I'm maybe misremembering 3.5, but I believe I'm pretty confident on the Pathfinder side, anyways. That,
okay, cool.
But it's not just full.
Gotcha.
And for starters, full is already bad. And I would actually argue that anything close to that is bad.
Yes.
So
God,
whereas
I talk about that too.
I am pretty vocal about my dissatisfaction with how easily classes that shouldn't be reach into the arcane space, how easily classes that shouldn't reach into the healing space. I think these are all detractors in the 5th edition space. But I would say push comes to shove, both from a tweaking standpoint and frankly from a kind of from a mechanical interaction standpoint. I actually think the better fix is to address the resting.
Okay.
Because I mean, there's nothing I can do if the rules say that you're a paladin. Okay, I have no qualms with a paladin having the ability to heal.
Thank
in fact,
you.
I think that's one of the cornerstones.
Yeah.
In fact, all of the classic races that could serve as some entity of healing in the group have become so undervalued. That's not to say they're not potent races or potent classes. Paladin, very strong. Cleric, very strong. But they're not very strong for the same reasons that they once were.
Well, we could talk about that too.
Yeah. But all that to say is we were talking about kind of the contingency of mechanics and the way everything works. So trying to go in and say, well, what classes do I not want to be able to get healing? You know, that's a rat's nest you don't want to even dive into.
Oh yeah.
But I think a very easy dial
okay.
for starting to correct some of what we're talking about is simply modifying what happens to players' health when they rest.
This actually brings up one of my points I want to bring up is out of combat healing versus in combat healing.
Okay.
And I think that kind of hits on the same thing is that, yeah, you're exactly right. That we need to increase the value of the healer. How
Yes.
do we increase the value of the healer is maybe after a battle, how do you bring your guys up? A rest isn't going to do it. So you need that extra.
Right. Well, I think I'll phrase it this way too, because I think you also we're definitely in the same vein.
Yeah.
5th edition is suffering from a supply and demand issue with regard to healing. The supply is so high that there is no demand for a true healer in the game. And so what I want to throw out to you, because we can mull this over and we can.
Let's just say this might be a little bit of a rant episode, so I can't say we'll say super linear, but
I want to pitch out to you, for our campaign, given that you are
I'm the
quintessentially the healer.
No, I took my character to be the healer,
but you have a wizard in your group, and that doesn't completely. Depending on what she chooses to do by
she multi-class an artificer, so she got access to lay on cure wounds. Excuse me.
But and then you've got a rogue, and a rogue fundamentally by nature of class, like I said, she's got an item that's kind of that. But take your party right now.
Yeah.
Do you think your role, your impact as a healer, improves? And I'm going to take this to the extreme, you can't heal on rest. It can't be done.
Oh my, yes, I'd become extremely more valuable.
So what do you think about that?
I will not lie. As we have increased in level and find more access to ways of healing, I have felt that thing that I provide the party has greatly diminished.
Yep. And I think that's the experience of so many players who want to fill that role and want to feel appreciated for bringing that to the team.
And there are things that Paladin can do that no one else can do, and there's like I can still shine, but yeah, it is. I am no longer like when I was the only one who could help, and those again as a healer. If you take on that, I'm a support character. That's what you live for.
Yeah,
is those moments where you're like, yeah, you would be dead right now, but I'm here, so don't worry.
Right.
I got you.
Right. So what I want to ask you is, and I'm not suggesting this for our game, but play the ideological experiment with me.
Sure.
I sit down with the group and I go, hey guys, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I really feel like Kel, as well as any of your other healing items, really are being undermined by the fact that when you long rest, it's all just gone. So,
I think it'd be interesting.
I want to remove healing. Well, actually, my preferred thought process for resting. And let's say resting.
All right, so let's go into because I think we've both been skirting around this edge. You have a system for resting that you think is good. So yeah.
Well, I know it's an improvement over 5th editions, but you could
WotC? No, get out of here.
All right,
sorry, WotC. If you ever want to give us money, I'll totally back everying.
We'll delete all the episodes where we say mean things, and then
pretty much a lot of them recently, but it's all right.
Well, that's again when you douse yourself in gasoline, someone's got a pack of matches on them. I will. I would actually say for 5th edition, I would generally advocate for.
Did you say 4th edition?
5th edition.
Okay, sorry.
If I said 4th edition, then I don't know where my head's at. But for 5th edition, what I would actually advocate for is, and this is you may give other considerations for if you guys are at a luxurious inn and you're getting true R&R rest. Okay. But I'm talking about you guys are out traveling, you're
in the boonies, in the wilderness. Absolutely.
You're not sleeping in a bed. You're on your bedroll. Your home is
true adventuring. Yep.
That I would actually advocate for a long rest grants you your Constitution modifier. Period. Flat. So if you have a +2 to Constitution, that's what you heal on a long rest. And I think what you immediately do is you go, hey, healer, you are so much more important now. That wand of healing, it is so much more important right now. Mm-hmm. And what you'll find is those charges, gone. Your lay on hands, gone. But you get to the place now where you're the guy again. You're the guy they're turning to when they're hurt, but you also are now being pressed. Is now the time? Or is it next time? Is there another fight around the corner? Or is there a cubbyhole where we can catch that rest and relaxation that we need? And there might be, like I said, creative parties might find ways of bolstering themselves, but what incentive do you have to find creative solutions to embolden yourself? Say you're out in the forest. Are you your choice is, can I go foraging for medicinal herbs or sleep for 8 hours and everything's fine again?
I'm going to sleep for 8 hours. There's
What's
no
the point?
question.
You know mechanically that you're gonna.
No, yeah, I don't know if I like the Constitution modifier, but the idea I really like.
What is it that you don't like about the Constitution modifier?
It's just too low.
Well, so my original pitch was going to be none at all. Just flat out.
Now it depends. I like that you said it depends. There is a little known game called Final Fantasy. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Never heard of it.
I've only
Is
played
it for that Atari box that you're always screwing around with.
the 26. I don't mess with the 52. But no. And again, actually, I am super dated because I'm recalling Final Fantasy 1. But anyway,
Do you have any paper notes on that?
there's like
Hold on, I still have the instruction manual that came with the cartridge.
I wish.
That'd be worth some money.
Probably. But when you took rest, there were different rest items. You had like a sleeping roll. I'm making these up because it's been a long time. Sleeping roll, and you had a tent, and then you had like a cabin.
Yeah.
And depending on what you got, depended upon how much recovery.
I'd
you
bring
were
my
granted.
cabin personally. If
No,
I
well,
was,
once you get to that point, you had your airship in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
But that idea is, I like that idea. If you're knee deep in gore and blood and guts in the dungeon, yeah, you might get your Constitution modifier.
Well, and I'll even amend what I said. I'm talking about that being your baseline. Again, as a DM, you might go, well, if they're, let's say you have, call it no accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
Say you have meager accommodations and luxurious accommodations, three tiers or whatever.
Right.
I would be open to that. But really, when it matters, generally speaking, is when you're on that bedroll.
Yeah, when you're
Because
in the dungeon.
If you have access to a luxurious suite,
Yeah.
the fact that you got your ass kicked in the street earlier that day, how much does that matter if you have access to a
So
luxurious
I'm
suite?
balancing right now what you're saying, because part of me is like, yeah, of course I want that. One, in our party, I'm a paladin and I'm the healer, and paladins are half healers.
Right.
But the idea that all of a sudden the healer. Now here's a problem, and now I don't know if this is a problem. Is this a problem? If we go down this path you're talking about, is a healer mandatory? Do you need to have a healer in your party?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's ever a condition in which you need to have a healer. That's entirely up to now. I think
if you only get your Constitution modifier, you're going to need something.
Well, let's say you had a party of nothing but healers. Would you say, do you need to have a damage dealer?
Okay. But let's say we have all strikers, damage dealers. Are they going to be successful in dungeons?
Well, probably less successful than a balanced party. That's the way I would answer yours. Is do you need a healer? No.
Well,
will you be more successful with one? Yes, but that's a given. I think.
Yeah,
even for 5th edition.
Well, even in 5th edition, but WotC is very. God, this is a rant episode. I'm sorry. They're very vocal about you can play whatever you want to play.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a party of all strikers, you have a party of all strikers.
Well, the reason that I feel pretty nonchalant about that is because I also like dice assigned attributes rather than, and in which case a whole party could roll up and no one's got the criteria to be a healer, and that's what you got, and you make the best. You have to think differently without a healer for sure. But my point is you would go into a campaign with that rule set, thinking differently about healing than you would with the raw rules of 5th edition.
And we also have a human DM who will make accommodations. You don't want to see us die. You'll provide challenges, but it's again, I always you're not a computer. You don't have preset everything. So I'd have to assume that you would allow us opportunities to survive.
Yeah, and I would just say if you guys all sat down and you said, "Hey, I want to play this, I want to play this, I want to play this," and none of them were healers, it's my job is not to tell you guys what you should or should be playing any more than if you guys all decided to be healers, which kind of is what 5th edition has opened that Pandora's box.
Which do you want to go into that one yet?
Yeah, sure we can. Well, so I want to get your
rants. Oh man, this is
I want to get your final thoughts on that, because it's not often I think you pitch to players something that is clearly a serious detriment mechanically to players But I think in the spirit of what we were talking about is, are we talking about this? Do we want this to be a mechanical first system or a narrative first system? And a narrative first system completely agrees with the notion that if you get knocked unconscious, like you are beat to death,
that has
or I say to dying,
serious consequences.
that sleeping for 8 hours does not mean that you're ready to tackle a dragon the next day.
No.
And
Well,
which
no,
is
I
what,
totally agree with that.
so it's more to just say, I think it does a bunch of things. One, I think it means that players need to view their hit points as a resource that shouldn't be spent cavalier.
Whatever. No.
But ultimately, that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about healing is how readily will players exchange hit points for progression?
It does increase the value of HP.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And if you know that, okay, well, we've got 3 healers out of 4 players in our party, or at least 3 people capable of injecting healing into the party.
Right.
We can sleep for 8 hours, assuming we can find 8 hours of unobstructed rest. And
Which is also anyway.
There are variables there. But all that to say is raw. There are so many reasons why players don't have to care about the health of their characters. You outlined right out of the gate. You can watch a player fall
I was
unconscious
about to say, yeah.
because you care so little about the health of that
Doesn't
character
matter.
that you'll pop them right back up. The game doesn't discourage that, and so I guess as far as I'm concerned, if I was building a system from the ground up,
Yeah.
The what I'll call passive healing, rest healing, would be anywhere between very slim to non-existent, because then it allows that healer to look you in the eyes and go, I got you. You're good. And now, oh, did you see that? There was a moment. We had a moment there.
We had a moment.
But the idea being that all of the value of surviving now exists in the paladin's hands, which is precisely the point of the paladin.
I totally agree. So I totally agree with you. Yeah. Which is more egregious, the yo-yo death thing in combat or the out of combat? I don't know which is worse, but I totally agree that both are fundamentally against what 5e should stand for.
I'd say what any system should stand for, but certainly,
okay.
certainly,
fair enough.
Certainly, 5th edition. It's one of the few places, or actually, it's not one of the few places. It's one place where I think the raw rules are misaligned with what people are wanting out of the experience.
100%. Yeah. It's because everyone wants their character to get to the level 20 and live happily ever after, which is not realistic in a world of fire-breathing dragons and death around every corner.
Yeah, and in fact, I think this can live in the topic of healing. I don't know that again, you're going to be taking the DM reins here at some point soon. I'll be
prepared for that.
Be donning the cloak of player.
And you better keep your mouth shut.
But what I'm saying is I don't think I want my character to go to 20. I don't think I want that for my character.
Well, if you do me, it's a one. It's
no, but I mean, if I'm a player,
I've actually had thoughts about this.
It is a mistake, I think, to go in convinced and maybe even aspiring to hitting that point.
Actually, I 100% agree.
And mostly because what you then need to demand of a system is something like what Raw 5e is giving you from a healing standpoint.
Yeah.
And if the second you're given that, getting to 20 doesn't mean that much, because it's like, well, yeah, I long rested my way here. So you guys want to remind me what happened? I've slept 8 out of every 12 hours for the last.
It's like every time you sit at the table, you're expecting to get to demigod status. I mean, again, it's just it takes success. The reward of success only comes from understanding what failure is.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we in lots of ways we can't experience failure as players.
I think the system raw does a lot to insulate players against failure, and I think especially, and when we're talking about something that's narrative first, there are few moments in any TTRPG that are going to carry more narrative weight than the death of a character. Mm-hmm. That is not a bad thing.
That is the best thing. Again, I can't look,
especially if you don't like the person who's playing. I mean, you're kind of like,
oh, I'm sorry, you're dead. Yeah, no. Can I create a new character? No, we don't like you. You're gone, dude.
No, no. Actually, we were planning on ending the campaign, so next week we're not going to be. We're still playing.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus, that got dark fast. So, all right. So there's so many negatives about healing. Do you want to start trying to get into like what are some ideas or like what we would like to see changed or any of that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess
I know you've hinted at it.
yeah. Well, I would start by asking, do you think that there are positives in what 5th edition hands you raw from a healing standpoint? Is it purely a system to kind of be deconstructed?
It does give you the ability to heal.
I think we can end it there in terms of no, I really I would go so far as to I would label healing in Dungeons and Dragons. I've talked a lot about lethality, and I think in a lot of cases that maps onto more dangerous combat, and it can, but actually I think the real crux is that even a hard-hitting, nasty bad guy that doesn't kill every single player, you're 8 hours away from being right back at it.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Okay, which I totally agree with.
So in terms of, but I would actually say you could say healing is to some extent the fulcrum of, the fulcrum of the tonal, thematic, and in many regards, some of the mechanical issues that 5th edition comes up against, and for many reasons, for many tables, and I think for many reasons, healing is not a raw experience.
No.
But anyways,
one thing, so in 5e, so many classes have wow, I got the heavy sigh off to say 5e classes. But
I know where you're going with this, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves in all of tabletop RPG.
So 5e, so many classes have access to healing. Is that a bad thing?
Yes, I think it is.
Because I have a caveat to that.
Well, I do too. I will caveat kind of what I was saying earlier. I think it's the lesser for 5th edition. I think it's the lesser of two evils to the resting problem.
Okay.
And also the resting problem is easier to solve because again, going through and picking through every class and going here's how I want to tweak this and that would be a nightmare. I don't want to do that.
Right. Instead, just get the resting.
I can,
Which let's kick that dead horse some more.
but that's my primary caveat. But just like I would say the same thing about the arcane. I would say the same thing about, there's so many aspects in which, again, part of what we've touched on about the importance of being the healer.
Mm-hmm.
That's predicated upon the fact that you're scarce. Being the magic user means that magic user is scarce. Being the and I think there's nothing wrong with, say you're a cleric, you've got a paladin in your party, maybe there's a druid, maybe there's you might have a party of all characters that kind of can easily reach in that space. Do any of them feel like the healer?
That's what I was going to hint at. So with everyone can dibble and dab, but there should be a difference between a person who says I'm going to specialize in healing and versus a person who's dibbles and dabs. And you're giving your long rest idea, that would definitely get it. There's a difference between I give you 1d4 hit points versus a person like, dude, I can give you 20 to 30 hit points.
Right.
So, but there are many roads up the mountain.
Yeah.
So there's the obvious cleric paladin. You get divination. You from a divine power. You're able to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Classic. Don't mess with that. But what's wrong with the fighter, or even the ranger, or even the fighter, who has such an understanding of how to mend wounds that they could fill that role?
Well, I would say. And I completely agree. In fact, I love the analogy of many paths up the mountain. Like, do I want a character who is, has existed in nature and,
knows what berries,
cured illnesses, and, do I want that character to be able to shine and excel? Yeah, absolutely. But for every character that shines and excels, now I'll open that up by saying if your career is going into dangerous places and extracting valuable things, anyone in that lifestyle, whether everyone from a rogue, you probably have developed some,
First
think
aid.
about archetypally, Jason Bourne sewing his own arm up. Is Jason Bourne a cleric? Is he a paladin?
Well,
No,
Jason Bourne is like one of the most highly trained CIA agents. But let's go to war. Like your common soldier might have some basic ideas, but there's a difference between a soldier who can apply a tourniquet versus
and
a medic.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of my point. Is if you want to be a medic, that I think is fine.
That's my thing. So, like, let's say you're a fighter medic,
right?
Therefore, you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your damage dealing abilities in order to become a medic.
And ultimately, to me, the question becomes, what is the cost of taking that path? Because I think 5e doesn't assess a large enough cost on non-healing classes to reach into those spaces. Like, again, paladin's kind of a half healer, but cleric is the archetype. I think
they're so fucking powerful. But anyway, keep going.
But if you take that cleric and you go, okay, and frankly, I'm not sure that there's a class that competes by way of. I mean, you can do some janky things. Don't get me wrong, but just that face value.
Yeah.
But if I want to mechanically bring my fighter to a place where it is any shade of equivalent healer to the cleric, my thinking is that's multiple levels of pursuit. That's feats. That's I don't think it should be an easy task for many classes.
No, you can't top the cleric. Cleric, then you need to have the best of the best, and I think cleric will always be the best of the best as far. But then the cleric, this is a problem with 5e, is the cleric is the best healer, but they can do it nonchalantly. It's just whatever, and then they get to focus their entire turn and most of their abilities on dealing damage.
Well, again, I think that depends on how much of a value you've placed on that healing, and 5e does a poor job of that. Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying is that's where I think another example of making those hit points more valuable means.
But let's say your fighter who has 3 attacks, right, which is not unreasonable by a level 11, right? What if instead of taking an attack, you can restore 1d12 plus your Constitution modifier
To yourself?
or to anyone? You're a combat medic.
Well, but again, so what did you have to do to get there?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my question.
So instead of getting maneuvers, instead of getting all these abilities, everything is channeled.
So this is a subclass?
This is a subclass.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have too much of a problem with that.
That's the thing. It's like, I think there are many roads up the mountain. However you want to go about healing, the problem is WotC's access to, like, you don't need a healer, therefore we're going to give healing to everyone, is every subclass has access to healings. What I should say is every class is its own thing, but if you're like, hey, I want to be the support, I want to be the healer, that's its own subclass.
Would it be fair to say, though, that there should be some classes that simply can't fill that role?
Yes.
Okay.
Rogue, barbarian.
Yeah, I think there are, and that's what I would say. Again, like ultimately, I think most of my feelings in this space, in any of the TTRPG spaces, boil down to the frankly old school sentiment of, I want my fighter to be the guy who stands there so everyone else can get out. I want my magic user to be a massive swell of power followed up by a pretty underwhelming performance in other
Glass cannon.
These are they're tropic, but it's also a deal where when it actually still mattered and a cleric turned undead.
Ooh, back in the old school, that was unbelievable.
A moment where everyone turned and went, we would all be dead if it wasn't for you.
Yeah, thank you, cleric.
And I think that to some extent, any system should strive to have the character stratification be such that there will be moments in combat and out of combat where everyone at the table can look to that player and go, your unique skill set saw us through.
Yep. Not so much.
I don't know. You were expressing this earlier in the episode that at this point in the campaign, anyone is turning to Kel and going, the fact that you have a divine connection to an
Yep.
actual goddess who channels energy through your hands
Yep.
such that we may continue to live was the most important thing about that interaction.
Yeah.
And how can it not be?
Yeah.
Like, I just refuse to understand.
And I don't want it to be like I'm enjoying our campaign immensely. I think my cooking has more of it, is way more beneficial right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
well, certainly because you have some kind of preemptive benefits and some kind of
I took
lasting
the
benefits.
cooking feat, but but the idea, like, how does that even compare?
Yeah.
To the
well,
fact
I
that
guess
I
to
can,
some extent, your cooking is also a manifestation of your goddess. That's
I
kind of been
understand
a
what
thing.
you're saying, but
Rules is written. I think that illuminates a lot of kind of the issues that are going on there. I think there are a number of angles with which you can attack this, but the core goal needs to be that healers are HP brokers.
Mhm.
That's what they fundamentally are.
Some people like save gold. Clerics and healers save HP.
Yeah, and if HP has very little value, healers have very little value.
Yep.
And so
Why be a healer?
yeah, and so like for instance, I would actually love to run something with you guys at some point where it's almost explicit to just outline this idea and go, I may even craft some excuse to do something weird in the campaign to just go like the world is stripped down, the haze, the miasma you found yourself in, your body doesn't regenerate it's just gone. It's all gone. And then for that one leg,
You have
guys
to rely
can go
on me.
yeah, and
I love it.
And the thing is even though technically your party only has a half healer, the other dips that the party is taking into, those also become more valuable.
Mhm.
And if you are tapped out,
All of a sudden,
there's nothing wrong with you looking to your companion and them having the solution then, but it feels so much better that another human being is doing something that's saving the day than a mechanic where you go like, I close my eyes and 8 hours from now they open.
I agree.
I agree. That to me is a fundamental. It's just no. It's like I can't even understand.
It is the most. I would agree with you that long rests are egregious especially against a healer, especially if you've gone that path. I think there's things beyond that, but yeah, I think long rests are so.
And again, it's not like they went, well, we better stick with tradition and just keep it. It's some pretty explicit decisions were made as editions went along. But there are other systems in which as little as like 1 hit point is the standard. And now there's another consideration that we haven't talked about with regard to rest and healing.
We do need to wrap it up.
And this will kind of be my final point is 5th edition. Another way that you could scale that, I don't think it works for 5th edition. This is why I say scale the HP rather than the time. It doesn't work well in 5th edition, generally speaking. If you're talking about these very continuous narrative enterprises, to say a long rest is a week or a month or in which case, sure, you want to rest a week, I'll give you all your hit points back. You're fine.
1,000 gold pieces to get a long rest. There we go.
Yeah. So, but again, what is the rest of the party doing if they're fully healthy and you're, and there are other systems and other ways of running the game that are not trying to achieve the same thing that 5th edition kind of is fundamentally achieving, that tolerate that just fine. Yeah. But I think you start going, I can tweak a system, but how much damage does it do in tweaking it? Saying a long rest, a short rest is say a day and a long rest is 7 days. That to me is, that does more damage narratively to what the continuity of the experience.
Well, it could be unless you plan for that as a DM.
Well, but I just think even as players, if your character needs to rest, do I just run a session for that week? Are the other players?
I would assume that we're all resting. Like, hey, we just got done with that dungeon. We all got our ass kicked. Let's all take a 7-day rest.
Well, I mean, you might, and I'm saying the systems that tolerate that a lot better aren't predicated upon everyone being present for it.
Yeah.
So that's I think it's just a much easier thing to go. 5e thinks about hit points a lot. It's a very combat centric space. just pinch the hose off and go, cool, you want to heal? Do it. Look to your healer. That's why they're there.
Yeah,
that's why they're valuable.
And that's
So,
why
Hey,
okay.
Watsy, 1D&D. I can guarantee you're either
hell.
changing nothing about this system or making it worse.
You're leaning way harder into it. I just feel it. I can just feel it.
Prove me wrong. I know that's the biggest concern you have right now is properly managing healing in 1D&D.
I'm looking forward to Pathfinder 3.
OTL.
I know, right? No, God, who knows? Who knows what will happen in the future? And we're not fortune tellers, but it's disappointing as I went through this journey to see this side of things, because I totally started like, yeah, everyone should have healing, to like, but that, why? Especially if that's your goal, is to make a narrative experience.
Right.
Why are you building everything to go against that?
Yeah. It really undermines the value of healers, and I think giving that value back to them
makes it feel so good.
It's two birds with one stone. It's a big win. So again, I'd advocate for everyone out there. I'd love to hear down in the comments from
Please.
everybody, because I get the impression. Well, both. Obviously, there's an entire subset of the subscriber base who are not in the 5th edition space. Talk with me about your systems, whether they be OSR systems or something way out in the fringes.
This? Yeah.
Yeah. How are you handling healing? And for those of you in 5th edition, are you running it raw? How's it working for you? And if you're not, what are you doing to amend it? Because I like I said, I think it can deliver an experience. It's just it's an experience, I think, that doesn't have the weight that.
No, yeah, I feel like it's more shallow, and yeah. That's a great. I don't have too much to add to that, but as players, we love feeling special, and if we went the route of healer, if we decided to wear that mantle in 5e raw, there's why did you go that route? There's no point.
That's actually not a bad question. Are you playing a healer right now?
Yeah.
And how do you feel the system supports or doesn't support that decision?
I don't know, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But if nothing else, the third party and the open game license that we know is going to stay long and true for the rest of the.
The third party will solve it, and they'll be there forever.
They will. Well, or they'll go to a different system, and it'll be the better for it. They'll splinter the group. But hey, you know what? If nothing else, the world is yours.